Hi, welcome to this short training video on how to communicate like an executive, where we're going to cover 3 common mistakes and how to fix them. But before I get started, let me just first introduce myself. My name is Drew Saur, and I'm an executive career coach and the founder of Drew Saur Coaching, a firm that specializes in helping managers, directors, and vice presidents make the transformation necessary to thrive at the executive level. As a former technology chief operating officer, I've combined 25 years of experience and education to create proven, actionable strategies that teach leaders how to become more influential communicators and thrive in high-performance environments. So let's dive in. So first, who is this for? As you can guess, it is for managers, directors, and vice presidents who want to get their next level executive role, whether that's one level up or all the way up to the C-suite. And the key is without having to work 80 hours a week. I want to teach you a new way to engage that'll let you do it without having to put in all the overtime that you might think you need. So what are you going to discover in this video? What I want you to take away from this is that your next level executive position is not just a bigger role. It is a different role, which means that you need to learn new skills and approaches to thrive there. So this is a proven approach. I know that most professionals don't have access to real-world practical training to develop the executive presence and influence skills they need to thrive at the top levels. During my career, I've helped hundreds of leaders improve their ability to communicate and reach their career goals. You can see a selection of them here, but that's what I do. I help people get to the next level and create the executive presence and influence skills that they need. So let's dive into the training. Today, we're going to talk about Executive Communication 101, covering just 3 common mistakes. So what is mistake 1? When you have up-and-coming people, the first mistake that they tend to do is rely on details, which makes complete sense. When you think most of us are trained, now I come from an engineering background, but most of us are trained that more data is more proof points, is a better argument to make your point. But that is no longer true at the executive level. So if you rely on details, it often focuses on the how, right? You explain all the 15 steps you did to solve a problem instead of the what is it and why is it important. The other thing that's very common is people add details when they get nervous. So you say something to an executive and then they're quiet. What do? You fill in the silence with more detail because you think you need to convince them even more. On the flip side, many people are able to condense their message when they only have a few minutes. So you are scheduled for a 20-minute presentation to an executive board. You walk in, they're running late, and they say, can you give us the 5-minute summary? And you may not be able to do that. But what happens if you approach this with the details? You get that perception that you are too in the weeds. You're not focused on the big picture. You may even be difficult to listen to, boring. People lose the point because they get lost in the details. But the real key here is that it'll come across as unpolished and unexecutive. So what's a better way to do this? The better approach is to build an executive communication toolkit that you've mastered before you need it, right? You need to know how to engage with executives. So here's a very simple model. It's called the what, so what, now what. And this is just one example of something that you want to add to your toolkit. The rules here are very simple. You get 3 statements if you're talking, or 3 bullets or 3 sentences in an email that convey what, which information is most important, what level of detail, what format, so what, why is this important, why now, and now what, who needs to do what, more specifically, is there anything the recipient needs to do? Now, again, I come from a technology background, so I'll give an example from my own experience where we had a reconciliation report. Right, so this is from financial services, a report that's used, and let's say it's broken. So what's going on? So you need to report to your boss. What is going on? The reconciliation report is broken. That's it. That's the what. Well, so what? Why is this important? Because if nobody uses this report, who cares? Why is it important? Well, in this case, it's important because our clients use this for their end-of-day reconciliation so they can file with the regulators. If they don't do that, they will be subject to fines. So why is this important? Because of a problem we have, our clients may have to pay a fine. Okay, that explains very quickly why it is important and why we need to deal with it now. Okay, so now what? Who's doing what? Again, 2 options here. 1, I've got this. We have a fix going in, and we'll put it in at 1 o'clock, and I will let you know in an hour what the resolution is. So I don't need you to do anything, and I need to be very clear about that. Or I do need you to do something. I need your approval to put this in, midday, right? But that's it. What's going on? Report's broken. So what? If we don't get it fixed, our clients are going to pay penalties and they're going to be very upset with us. And now what? I need you to sign this paper. Or I need you to click this button so I can fix it in the next 2 hours. And that's it. It's a very simple model, but one that's very successful. It gives you the idea of how condensed you need to make your information at the executive level. So that's mistake number one. Let me give you another one. The other common mistake is focusing on delivering, focusing on the day-to-day. Because as I said earlier, being amazing at your job does not mean you will succeed at the next level. So if you talk too much about delivery, operations, incidents, day-to-day challenges, all the stuff you do all day, you will be perceived as a good soldier, dependable, highly valued in your role, but that's not actually a good thing. Because if I'm your boss or your boss's boss, and I'm considering promoting you to the executive level, if you are unbelievably good at your job, I need to replace you. And if I can't think of somebody who's going to do the job as well as you do, I may be reluctant to actually promote you. So again, what is a better way to approach this? The better approach is to realize that executives, which is what you want to be, do not deal with day-to-day issues. That is why they have managers and directors. So you want to focus on high-level topics. So when you think about what you do and the organization that you run, do you build teams or do you build organizations? Because most people coming up, they get a team, they're a team lead, they're a manager, they're a director, they build teams. Executives, on the other hand, build organizations because it's a much broader concept. It's teams of teams. It also encompasses things like training and onboarding and all the other things you need to build an organization. So you want to think about what are the words that you use and make sure that you use words that are aligned to the executive level focus. Another example, do you talk about product features, building function X, building function Y, or do you talk about client benefits? What is the client going to do with this? How will this help them benefit from using our services? And the third one, which is a favorite, again, from the technology perspective, right, which is where I come from, which is going live the end or the beginning of the conversation? Because if you've ever worked on a project, building new features, new functionalities, going live, having that thing in production where customers can access it is often considered the end. Hey, congratulations, we did this thing, we put it in production, what's the next thing that I can build? But from the business context, that's the beginning of the conversation. That is the first time a client is going to use it. Now you can talk about what is the revenue, what are the conversion rates, what's the retention rate for our clients. These are business conversations. And that's another example of, regardless of what your day job is, you need to think about how you can add more to that business conversation. So that's number two. And let me give you just a third one for today. And this is the idea that you focus too much on yourself, your role, and how to make yourself better, which I know is a bit of an oxymoron because we've all been trained that way, right? We all want to improve ourselves. We need to be clear and brief on your executives, speak clearly, project your voice, practice what you say. But the executive levels is actually about influence. While it's always good to speak well, right? What we want to talk about from an executive presence perspective is it's not about you, it's about them. And that's a very important mindset that you need to start to shift in terms of how do you influence others. So how does influence work? What is the better way? The better way is that you need to align your messages to a specific audience. So it's not how you would default communicate. You don't communicate to others the way you would like to be communicated. You need to adapt yourself. The more styles you can use, the more success you're going to have. And there's two key pieces to it. One is their motivation, and the second is their engagement style. I think a simple example here. Let's take a chief operating officer who, that's the role, right? So you have an existing executive chief operating officer. Scenario number one, that person wants to become chief executive officer. They want to be CEO. So what is their motivation? Their motivation is to become CEO. What does that mean? That means they want to take on big and bold ideas. They need successes. They want to make sure that they succeed. So they're going to be looking for things that are interesting, new, different, and potentially willing to take on more risk. Now let's take on the same exact role. Again, a chief operating officer, but they're going to retire in 2 years. What is their motivation? If you're going to retire in 2 years, your motivation is don't screw anything up, right? Don't make a mistake. So what does that mean? They're going to be much more conservative. They're going to want much more data and information to be convinced that they should do something. They're going to be more risk averse, right? Same job, potentially same individual, but depending on what their goals are, their motivations are, you need to approach them differently. So that's motivation. Engagement style is more simple, right? Do they like data? Do they like pictures? Do they like information? How do they actually engage? Do they like to talk about their personal life or not? As a simple example, if you're going to go talk to your chief financial officer, that type of individual typically is very numbers driven, right? They want to see the data, they want to do the math, they want to see the proof. If you talk to the head of marketing, they're much more emotional. They're much more focused on the story and how things make them feel. They don't really care as much historically about numbers, right? So you need to understand the individual, their motivation, as well as their engagement style. And if you can increase your toolkit so that you can mix and match those, you will improve your influence. So that's the third one. But those are 3 simple ideas, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg. Many people are facing these same issues. And these are quotes I hear all the time. I get nervous around executives. I know I could do more if they just give me the chance. They don't listen to me. I don't have a seat at the table. I can't figure out how to get there, right? And the challenge is many individuals need to transform the way they communicate and engage, but they don't know how. They are stuck, leaving their full potential untapped. And that may be true for you as well. People often try to tackle it on their own. So what do they typically do before they end up talking to me? First, they ask their peers. But their peers tend to also be struggling to get the executive level, so that's not a lot of help. They may ask executives for advice, which is a good place to start, but most executives have never really thought about how they made it there in the first place. So they don't really know what they did, so they can't really communicate it back to you how it's going to work. Googling on the internet, but then you're haphazardly trying new tactics to see if they work. And then classically, a lot of people just keep doing the same thing. They just hope that one more success will get them there. And if that's your approach, you're going to stay stuck. So what's the path to success? With this program, you can make the transformation necessary to thrive at the executive level. You're going to build the confidence you need. People start to listen to you. You're going to become a respected peer. You will be approached for ideas and advice. And most importantly, you will transform into that executive. You'll be accepted as a member of the club and as somebody who gets a seat at the table that people listen to, and you can make that contribution to the organization that you are capable of. So ultimately, the goal is for you to become an influential executive level leader. And in this program, you'll get access to 25 years of experience in the single program. It's online, so you can watch the videos and follow the advice from anywhere in the world at any time. As I said before, it is a proven plan. This works. Success is not a stroke of luck. So if you follow these, you will get your next level executive role, and there's expert support. I'll be available to answer your questions and provide you support that you may need throughout the entire process. So if you want to differentiate yourself as an influential executive level leader, then sign up today.